I'll start off this review by reading the plot summary on IMDb, which reads, based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Colson Whitehead, Nickel Boys chronicles the powerful friendship between two young African-American men navigating the harrowing trials of reform school together in Florida. But this is a movie that really, you can see the strength of the filmmaker Ramel Ross, who is actually a Oscar-nominated filmmaker, despite this being their first feature-length narrative debut. They were nominated for a documentary a couple years ago, which I haven't seen. I'm probably going to check out now, because I really enjoyed this movie. I was just on IMDb, just looking up all the names and everything, and I saw that it said Ramel Ross, had like a list of some of their favorite movies or movies that inspired them, and he put The Tree of Life as one of them, and that's a comparison I thought of when I was watching this movie. You can see the influence of that movie onto this one. In many ways, this does feel like a Terrence Malick movie in the way that it's shot, in the way that it is edited. And this one, like Terrence Malick, is pushing new grounds. You could argue this is, in many ways, art house in the way that it is telling its story with its something you might have heard of. It is told entirely through first person's perspective. You are seeing a POV shot every single time you're watching it, whether it is the main character that we follow the most in the movie through, Elwood, or whether it is by Turner, played by Brandon Wilson, who I thought really stole the show. I thought Brandon Wilson was incredible. Could maybe be Oscar nomination worthy. I don't know, but he was very good. Everyone was very good in this movie. But I wanted to give a special shout out to him. You see these first person POV shots, and the second you hear something like that, your thought is, okay, but is that just a gimmick, or is this actually something that you think is adding to the story? And I feel like usually it isn't just a gimmick. Like, I feel like usually these things are at the very least an attempt to add something to the story. You can argue, did it work or not? That's a fair argument. But, like, usually I do think that these, movies take a lot of effort to be made. Usually you're doing something for a reason. And this one especially is doing it for a reason. And it actually created a pretty unique effect on me personally, where after I left the theater, I was kind of like, it almost like hung with me a little bit that now I am experiencing my world, obviously, through first person, and it sort of created this out-of-body experience almost. I felt like I was kind of like still in the movie, in a sense. One of the difficulties with doing something like this is obviously that, like, you kind of have to take long takes through a large part of it, and this movie does have cuts in it, like it'll, cut to something else that he could have been looking at, almost like you're editing stuff out of his, memory, you could view it as. So it's not quite like every single shot is just one take until it cuts to the next shot, but there still are long moments of just, long takes, including when we see a flash forward shot where a character is reunited with someone who used to go to Nickel, was part of this academy, and they're reconnecting after a long period of time. There were long stretches of that were without cuts, and it was I think it really added to the scene. Of course, to do that, the acting has to be on point. You have to act for a while, and I really thought that a lot of the acting, especially in that scene, which is by a very, a minor character, I believe that actor was only in that scene, but it really was a well done performance there. So, and that's kind of what makes this movie work, is all the little performances are just as good as some of the larger performances, which I think is not easy to pull off. Couple other minor performances. Fred Heitchinger, who I first saw from White Lotus. He was also in Gladiator 2, having a good year. Was very good in this one. Also, Angeline Ellis Taylor was very good, and then of course the lead, Ethan Hersey. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but as the main lead of Elwood, he was very good as well. A lot of good performances, really fascinatingly shot. But enough about the technical stuff, right? What about just the story itself? This is a very moving story. It's kind of the story that, unless you're heartless, you are going to feel things when you are watching it, right? I mean, how could you not? It's a very dark story. I mean, like, okay, again, you're talking about a story about racism in this time period. It's not going to be light and breezy. Don't get me wrong. There are some moments of humor and some moments of levity in it that are all feel tasteful, but this definitely is it's a dark story. It doesn't hold back. And if you're going to do that, you kind of have to nail it. I won't name any movies by names, but we've all seen those movies that are like, okay, this is not working right with this material. This one fully, you kind of need to pull this off really well if you're going to tell a story like this, and it it knocks that out of the park. An interesting thing this film does is it juxtaposes, because this is the same time period as the moon landing, and it kind of juxtaposes what these two boys in this story are going through with the moon landing, which I found interesting for a couple of reasons. Because I think you could argue that the moon landing is one of humanity's greatest achievements, right? For centuries and centuries, we looked up and saw the moon, and then one day we got people on it. That's a pretty incredible achievement. But it also juxtaposes that while we were doing that, we were doing horrible things to certain people of our communities, right? And I think that's an interesting thing to bring up. And it's also perhaps fascinating to talk about how, hey, for a while, putting people on the moon seemed impossible, but then one day it did happen. Just like how getting rid of reform school for many days seemed impossible, and then one day it did happen. And, just like how sometimes it might feel impossible now to get rid of some of the, the race issues that we have in this country. It is not impossible. So, I don't know. That's my read on it. Maybe more of an optimistic read on a darker story. And I won't go any further than that because I don't want to spoil anything. But, feel free to check it out. This is one that, again, if you're looking for unique experiences at the movies, don't let this one pass you by. See it in a theater. It is worth seeing because of the sound design and the Terrence Malick-ness to it. Again, it's very much its own thing. It's very much not a Terrence Malick movie. Just that's, a comparison I would make. But you can't complain about Hollywood movies are all the same and then not go out and see something like this, because this is very much its new thing. It's very much a new thing. It's funny how I was kind of down on this year movies wise. I thought that through the first 10 months or so, okay, there were some I enjoyed, but for the most part, there wasn't a movie I'm like, that was just, that was amazing. And then it just seemed like I saw 4 or 5 towards the end of the year. It's actually made me feel pretty good about this year in movies. A lot of good stuff and then some great stuff. This is definitely in the great stuff category. I am giving Nickel Boys a 9 out of 10. I don't need to get into spoilers here. I kind of forgot that I did a whole category sting for my Brutalist review and then haven't gone back to that, but I don't think I need to. I think I covered everything the way I did it this video. So yeah, that's Nickel Boys. Check it out if you haven't already. I highly recommend it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.